In this section, we'll share information about organizations' leadership, staff, and board diversity. A strong and healthy advocacy ecosystem is one in which organizational leadership, staff, and board represent racial or ethnic and lived experience populations served by the organization, and one that reflects diversity in decision-making. To develop a greater understanding of organizational diversity in the ecosystem, we analyzed two main things. One, which racial or ethnic and lived experience groups are represented within organizations' leadership, staff, and board? And two, how does this compare to the racial or ethnic and lived experience groups that organizations prioritize? Looking at organizational racial or ethnic diversity, the majority of organizations' leadership, staff, and board include white or Caucasian individuals, followed by Hispanic or Latinx individuals, and then Black or African American individuals. To look closer at how organizations reflect the populations that they seek to serve, we compared leadership, staff, and board racial or ethnic diversity by their prioritized racial or ethnic groups. We found that almost half of the organizations that serve Hispanic or Latinx communities had Hispanic or Latinx representation at leadership, staff, and board levels, while 94% have representation in at least one of these levels. On the other hand, only 12% of organizations that serve Black or African Americans had Black or African American representation at staff, leadership, and board levels, while 74% had representation in at least one of these levels. For other communities of color, reported representation is even less. I'm going to give you a few moments now to look at the data on this slide. So looking at organizational lived experience diversity, the majority of organizations' leadership, staff, and board include women, individuals who are workers or employees, and parents or guardians. Organizations have a greater representation of some key priority lived experience populations among their staff than their leadership or board, as seen by the highlighted populations, including individuals who are LGBTQIA, individuals who have low income and or low wealth, individuals who are or have been justice involved, immigrants or refugees, individuals who have disabilities, youth or children, and individuals who have experienced homelessness. Take a few moments to look at the data on this slide. As with prioritized racial or ethnic groups, to look closer at how organizations reflect the populations that they seek to serve, we compared leadership, staff, and board lived experience diversity by their prioritized lived experience populations. We found that organizations that seek to serve parents or guardians, women, and workers or employees had a greater representation of those groups across their organization's leadership, staff, and board members. After reviewing the data about leadership, staff, and board racial or ethnic and lived experience diversity, reflect back on your organization's diversity. Which groups are represented and influential in your organization? How does your organization include different populations in decision-making? How can you increase inclusion and equity across your organization's staff, leadership, and board?